The cockpit of the Phoenix was a whirlwind of flashing lights and blaring alarms. Astrid, a determined astronaut from Brazil, gripped the controls with white-knuckled intensity, her heart racing as she navigated through a meteor shower. The sleek vessel, designed for interstellar exploration, was now battling against the chaotic force of nature. Each violent jolt sent her stomach into knots, but she focused on one thought: survival. "Come on, come on!" she muttered to herself, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of alarms. The ship shook violently as a meteor grazed the side, sending it spiraling into a tailspin. Astrid's fingers danced over the controls, desperately trying to regain stability. "Not like this, not after all the training!" Outside the viewport, streaks of light raced past, the meteors illuminating the darkness of space. She could barely see the vastness of the universe around her, only the dangers that lurked. The mission to explore Xyler 7 had already been fraught with peril, but this was a new level of chaos. As she wrestled with the ship, a sudden, jarring impact echoed through the cockpit. Alarms blared more insistently, and Astrid's heart plummeted as she realized the ship had been struck. She was losing control. "Brace for impact!" she shouted to herself, her voice trembling with anxiety. The Phoenix was now hurtling towards the surface of Xyler 7, a planet she had only glimpsed through her instruments. The horizon of the alien world approached at an alarming speed, and Astrid's mind raced with thoughts of her mission. She had dedicated years to space exploration, and now it was all crashing down. "Failure is not an option," she whispered, a mantra to keep her grounded amidst the chaos. As the ground rushed closer, she braced herself, her breath quickening. With a deafening crash, the Phoenix collided with Xyler 7, metal groaning in protest. Astrid felt her body slam against the harness, the impact jarring her senses. Darkness enveloped her as she lost consciousness. When Astrid awoke, the world around her was a haze of smoke and wreckage. She blinked against the sharp brightness of an alien sun filtering through the twisted remains of her ship. Dazed, she pushed herself up, wincing at the pain that shot through her body. "Is anyone there?" she croaked, her voice hoarse. Silence answered her. Gingerly, she surveyed her surroundings. The landscape was nothing like she had imagined, lush and vibrant yet menacing. Towering trees with iridescent leaves swayed in a gentle breeze, and the ground was carpeted with strange, luminescent plants that pulsed softly. It was beautiful, but the unease in her stomach told her that beauty could mask danger. As she began to gather her bearings, Astrid noticed movement out of the corner of her eye. Shadows flitted between the trees, and her heart raced. Instinctively, she crouched, her body tense with anticipation. "What are you?" she whispered, peering into the depths of the foliage. The creatures lurking there were unlike anything she had ever seen, their forms shifting and elusive. Suddenly, a rustling sound echoed through the air, and an enormous creature emerged. It resembled a cross between a reptile and an insect, with glistening scales and multifaceted eyes that glowed ominously. Astrid's breath caught in her throat as the creature regarded her with an intense curiosity. "Stay back!" she commanded, trying to inject authority into her trembling voice. The creature tilted its head, as if weighing her words. It took a cautious step forward, and Astrid's instincts screamed at her to flee. "No, no, please!" She scrambled to her feet, heart pounding in her ears. As she turned to run, she felt the ground beneath her tremble, and she stumbled, glancing back to see the creature still watching her, its eyes glinting with an otherworldly intelligence. "Not a good start," she muttered to herself, panting heavily as she darted through the alien terrain. Every instinct told her she had to survive, to find shelter and assess her situation. The memories of her training flooded back: stay calm, evaluate your resources, and seek help if needed. But help from whom? As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold, Astrid felt a mixture of fear and determination. She was alone on a hostile planet, with dangers lurking in the shadows. Clenching her fists, she vowed silently, "I will survive." With that, she set off into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges Xyler 7 had in store for her. Astrid's heart raced as she navigated through the dense foliage of Xyler 7, her senses heightened, aware of the lurking dangers. The vibrant colors of the alien landscape, though captivating, provided a stark contrast to the ominous feeling gnawing at her gut. She had to remain vigilant. The crash had left her shaken, but the thrill of exploration pushed her forward. Suddenly, a low, menacing growl pierced the air. Astrid froze, instinctively crouching behind a large, twisted tree trunk. Her eyes widened as an enormous creature emerged from the underbrush. It was a massive insect-like predator, its segmented body glistening under the foreign sun. The creature's multiple eyes scanned the surroundings, and Astrid held her breath, praying it wouldn't catch her scent. "Think, Astrid, think!" she whispered to herself, recalling the survival training she had undergone. This was not the time for panic. She needed to find a way to escape. The creature's gaze shifted, and in that moment she saw her chance. With a swift movement, she darted towards a nearby cliff, its jagged edges providing a precarious path upward. As she climbed, she could hear the creature's claws scraping against the ground, a sound that sent chills down her spine. Come on, she urged herself, her muscles burning as she pulled herself higher. She reached a ledge just as the creature lunged, its jaws snapping mere inches away from her feet. Astrid scrambled over the edge, rolling onto the rocky surface, her heart pounding in her chest as she peered down at the beast below. "Not today," she muttered, watching the creature retreat into the shadows. With a deep breath, she allowed herself a moment of relief. She was alive, at least for now. But the dangers of this planet were far from over, and the encounter left her questioning her next move. After a moment of gathering herself, Astrid surveyed her surroundings. The cliff offered a majestic view of the alien terrain, but she needed shelter. Climbing down carefully, she spotted a dark opening in the distance, a cave. It seemed like a perfect refuge from the hostile world outside. As she approached the cave, a strange energy enveloped her. The walls glimmered with iridescent minerals, and she could make out faint murals depicting beings that resembled her. They were tall, with elongated limbs and intricate patterns on their skin, their faces a blend of fierce and ethereal beauty. "Who are you?" she whispered, tracing her fingers over the ancient drawings. "Did you live here before?" Her curiosity piqued, Astrid ventured deeper into the cave. The air was cooler, and the silence was almost comforting. She felt a connection to the place, as if it held secrets waiting to be uncovered. Suddenly, the ground trembled slightly, and she heard rustling sounds emanating from the depths of the cave. "Hello?" she called out, her voice echoing off the stone walls. "Is anyone there?" To her surprise, a soft, melodic voice responded, reverberating through her mind rather than her ears. "You should not be here, human!" Astrid's heart raced at the realization that she was not alone. She turned slowly, and her breath caught in her throat as a group of beings emerged from the shadows. The Veltrixians. They were even more magnificent than the murals had depicted, skin shimmering like the night sky, eyes glowing with an otherworldly light, their forms both intimidating and captivating. "Stay back," she said, raising her hands defensively, though she felt a strange pull towards them. "I mean no harm." The Veltrixians exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. "You are intruding upon sacred ground," one of them spoke, its voice echoing in her mind like a distant song. "Why have you come?" Astrid's mind raced as she tried to find the right words. I crashed here. I'm an astronaut. I need help," she stammered, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. "I'm not here to exploit your world. I just want to survive." The leader of the Veltrixians, a tall figure with intricate patterns that glimmered under the cave lights, stepped forward. "Survival is a complex dance, human. We have seen your kind before, and they have not been kind to our world." "I understand," Astrid replied, her voice trembling. "But I'm not like them. I can prove it." She looked into their luminous eyes, feeling a connection that transcended language. "Please, I just want to go home." The Veltrixians murmured among themselves, their whispers creating a symphony of sound that resonated in the cave. Astrid held her breath, her heart pounding in anticipation. This could be her chance, a chance not just for survival, but for understanding a world that had initially seemed so hostile. As the Veltrixians observed Astrid with their luminous eyes, a palpable silence enveloped the cave. It was an awe-inspiring moment, their shimmering skin reflecting the faint light that filtered through the cave entrance. Astrid took a deep breath, her heart racing, not only from fear but from an inexplicable connection she felt towards these otherworldly beings. Suddenly, a voice echoed in her mind, smooth and resonant, as if it were a gentle breeze caressing her thoughts. "You possess a remarkable spirit, human," the voice said, emanating from Zorak, the leader of the Veltrixians. Astrid's eyes widened, the realization dawning that they were communicating telepathically. "You have survived the storm that brought you here." "I didn't have much of a choice," she replied, her thoughts reflecting her stubbornness. "But I'm grateful to be alive. I need help. My ship, it's damaged, and I'm stranded." Zorak tilted his head, the iridescent patterns on his skin shifting subtly, mirroring the emotions swirling within him. "We have seen your struggle. Your resilience intrigues us. But you must understand, our resources are sacred. We cannot simply share them without understanding your intentions." Astrid nodded, aware of the delicate balance she needed to strike. "I promise, I mean no harm. I just want to repair my ship and return home. I can help you too. I'm a scientist. Perhaps my knowledge could benefit your people." Another Veltrixian stepped forward, his expression tense and watchful. "What if your kind seeks to exploit our world? We've seen what humans can do." His voice was laced with suspicion, echoing the fears of those who had witnessed the destruction humans could bring. "We're not all the same," Astrid countered, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "I understand your concerns. Trust me, I've lost everything. I have no intention of hurting anyone. I just want to survive." Zorak glanced at his compatriots, sensing the weight of their thoughts. "Perhaps we should show her our ways, learn more of her intentions," he suggested, his voice a calm anchor amidst the brewing storm of emotions. The group murmured among themselves, hesitant yet curious. Astrid sensed that she had a small window of opportunity to prove herself. "Please," she implored, stepping closer. "Let me learn from you. I want to understand your culture, and in return I can share mine." Days passed, and Astrid found herself immersed in the Veltrixian way of life. They taught her how to harness energy from the planet, a technique that required a deep connection to the land and its vibrations. Under Zorak's guidance, she discovered their unique rituals, which involved harnessing energy from the luminous flora that surrounded them, enabling them to thrive in harmony with their environment. "Feel the pulse of the earth," Zorak instructed during one of their training sessions. They stood before a massive, phosphorescent tree whose roots dug deep into the ground. "Let it guide your thoughts." Astrid closed her eyes, concentrating on the rhythmic vibrations emanating from the tree. Slowly, she began to feel a connection, a warm energy flowing through her. "This is incredible," she whispered, opening her eyes, her heart racing with excitement. Zorak smiled, a look of pride etched on his face. "You have a gift, Astrid. You understand the energy flows. Perhaps you are not so different from us after all." As their bond deepened, Astrid learned more about the Veltrixians' history. They spoke of their ancestors, once powerful beings who safeguarded the planet's energy. "We were once revered," Zorak explained, his voice heavy with nostalgia. "But we retreated into the shadows, fearing the destruction that came with outsiders." "I understand," she replied softly. "It's hard to trust when you've been hurt. But I want to help you protect your home." Just as their friendship began to flourish, a faction of Veltrixians emerged, their intent clear. They gathered in secret, whispering amongst themselves, their expressions dark and resolute. "We cannot allow this human to exploit our resources," one of them asserted, his tone fierce. "She may bring destruction upon us." Zorak's eyes narrowed as he overheard their conversation, concern etching his features. "We must find a way to unite our people, to show them that cooperation can bring strength rather than vulnerability," he said, turning to Astrid. "But the path ahead will not be easy. I'll do whatever it takes, Astrid vowed, determination igniting within her. I won't let fear tear apart what we've started. We can be allies. As night fell, a sense of foreboding settled over the Veltrixian camp. The fragile alliance was under threat, and Astrid felt the weight of their trust resting heavily on her shoulders. She knew that the coming days would test not only her survival skills but also the newfound friendships that had begun to blossom amidst the chaos of Xyler 7. Astrid stood at the center of the gathering of Veltrixians, her heart pounding in her chest as she faced the tense assembly. The shimmering beings, with their iridescent skin reflecting the faint light of the alien sun, exchanged glances filled with uncertainty. She felt the weight of their skepticism pressing down on her, but she was determined to bridge the gap between the factions. Listen to me, she began, her voice steady despite the fear swirling within her. I know you're afraid. I am too. But we are stronger together than we are apart. The dangers of this planet threaten us all. She paused, taking a deep breath as she searched for the right words. I've lost everything I ever knew. My home, my people. I survived because I found allies where I least expected them. I am not your enemy. Zorak, the leader of the Veltrixians, stepped forward, his eyes glowing softly with a mix of curiosity and caution. You speak of loss, Astrid. But how can we trust that your kind will not harm our home? You have come from a world of conflict. I understand your concerns, she replied, her voice unwavering. But I believe that friendship can transcend worlds. I've seen the beauty of your culture, the way you connect with each other and the planet. You can teach me, and I can help you. Together, we can face the threats of Xyler 7. Together, we can ensure that both our peoples survive. The murmurs among the Veltrixians grew louder, a mixture of doubt and intrigue. Astrid could sense the shifting dynamics, the way some were beginning to reconsider their stance. She pressed on, sharing stories of her own struggles, her training as an astronaut, the challenges she faced in her own world. I've been in places where trust was scarce, where survival meant making alliances with those who were once seen as enemies. It's not easy, but it's necessary. A Veltrixian with a deep blue hue stepped forward, her voice resonating like chimes in the wind. What if we lose more than we gain? What if your people come to exploit us? Then we'll fight together, Astrid replied, her determination igniting a spark in the air. We'll protect each other. I will not let anyone take from you what is yours. You have my word. As Astrid spoke, the ground beneath their feet trembled ominously, a low rumble echoing through the cave. The sky darkened, and a distant roar filled the air. A volcanic eruption? Panic began to spread among the Veltrixians, their shimmering forms flickering in the sudden shadows of uncertainty. Zorak! Astrid called, her voice cutting through the rising fear. We need to move! We have to find shelter, and fast! With urgency, Zorak nodded, rallying the Veltrixians. Follow me! He commanded, his voice steady and authoritative. The group moved swiftly, Astrid keeping close to Zorak as they navigated through the rocky terrain. The tremors intensified, and clouds of ash began to fill the air, obscuring their vision. Over here! Astrid shouted, spotting a narrow crevice in the rocks. They squeezed through, the heat from the impending eruption palpable. Inside, they huddled together, the Veltrixians looking to her for guidance. This is a moment for us to unite, Astrid urged, her voice calm amidst the chaos. We must use our strengths together. If we're going to survive this, we need to work as one. The Veltrixians exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting a mix of fear and determination. Zorak stepped closer to Astrid, his presence reassuring. You are right, Astrid. In this moment, we are not just Veltrixians or humans. We are survivors. As the ground shook violently, Astrid felt a surge of adrenaline course through her. Let's create a barrier. Together, we can shield ourselves from the worst of it. Zorak nodded, channeling the energy of the Veltrixians. Astrid, drawing upon her training, began to strategize, directing the group on how to form a protective shield using their combined abilities. Focus on the energy flow. We can create a force field. Together, they concentrated, the air around them vibrating with energy as they worked in unison. The eruption roared outside, but within the crevice, a shimmering barrier began to form, glowing with the colors of their combined essences. "We can do this!" Astrid shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "Stay focused!" With one final push, the barrier solidified, and the eruption's fury raged outside. Astrid and the Veltrixians held their breath, united in their determination to survive. Once the shaking subsided and the ash began to settle, they looked at one another, their bond forged in the fire of adversity. "We did it!" Zorak breathed, his eyes shining with newfound respect for Astrid. "We survived together." As they emerged from their temporary refuge, Astrid felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. The Veltrixians had become more than allies. They were friends, bound by the trials they had faced together. She knew now that their journey was only beginning, and with Zorak by her side, they would harness the energy of this planet to power her ship and find a way back home. Together. The sun dipped low on the horizon of Xyler 7, casting an ethereal glow across the landscape, as Astrid tightened the last bolt on the Phoenix's hull. The Veltrixians had worked tirelessly alongside her, their shimmering forms moving gracefully through the twilight, lending both their knowledge and energy to the ship's repairs. The air was thick with anticipation. Astrid could feel the weight of their eyes upon her, a blend of hope and skepticism. "Zorak, I believe we're almost there," Astrid said, wiping the sweat from her brow. She looked up to meet Zorak's gaze, whose iridescent skin shimmered like the stars above. "If we can stabilize the energy core just a little more, we should be able to power the ship." Zorak nodded, his antennae twitching slightly. "Your determination is commendable, Astrid. Yet, we must remain vigilant. The dissenters grow restless." He gestured with a long, elegant arm toward a cluster of Veltrixians standing apart, their expressions dark and brooding. Astrid's heart sank. She had sensed a rift among the Veltrixians, a fracture threatening to undo the fragile alliance they had built. "What if I speak to them? Maybe I can help them understand that working together is our only chance for survival." Zorak's eyes glimmered with uncertainty. "I fear they may not listen. Their hearts are heavy with doubt. They believe we risk too much by aiding you." Just then, a loud crash echoed from the direction of the dissenters. Astrid's instincts kicked in, and she sprinted towards the sound, Zorak following closely behind. When they arrived, they found a group of Veltrixians, led by a fierce-looking creature named Varric, attempting to dismantle a section of the Phoenix's energy core. "Stop!" Astrid shouted, her voice carrying authority despite her small stature. "What are you doing?" Varric turned, his eyes narrowing. "You are not one of us, human. You cannot be trusted with our power. You will leave us stranded, just like your kind has done before." Astrid felt the weight of his words. "I promise you, I want to leave this place, but I can't do it without your help. If we don't work together, we'll all be lost. Don't you see that?" A murmur rippled through the dissenting group. They exchanged glances, their resolve wavering. Zorak stepped forward, his voice calm yet firm. "We have survived countless trials. Let us not succumb to fear now. Together, we can harness the energy of Xyler 7 and ensure our survival." Varric's expression hardened. "And what if your ship betrays us? What if you exploit our resources and leave us to fend for ourselves?" "I would never do that," Astrid insisted, desperation creeping into her voice. "I have seen the beauty of your culture and the strength of your people. I want to share that with the universe, not take from it." "Words are easy," Varric replied, crossing his arms. "But actions speak louder. Prove your intentions, human." Before Astrid could respond, a tremor shook the ground beneath them. A sudden surge of energy crackled in the air, illuminating the darkening sky. The Veltrixians exchanged alarmed glances, and Astrid's heart raced. "What is happening?" she asked, her gaze darting around. Zorak's face reflected both awe and fear. "The energy flow is destabilizing. We must work quickly to stabilize it, or we could lose everything." Astrid felt a surge of adrenaline. "We need to come together now. All of us. This is a threat to our survival. If we work in harmony, we can channel the energy and protect our home. Varric hesitated, glancing at his fellow dissenters, who looked equally distressed. What do you propose? Join me at the energy core, Astrid urged. We'll need everyone's strength. Together, we can restore balance. If we don't, this planet may consume us all. As the ground continued to shake, the dissenters exchanged uneasy glances before slowly moving towards Astrid and Zorak. The air was electric with tension, but in that moment, hope flickered within the hearts of the Veltrixians. Astrid took a deep breath, ready to lead them into what could be their greatest challenge yet, unifying their strengths against a common threat. Let's do this, she said, determination lighting her eyes as they gathered around the energy core, united in purpose for the first time. For our survival. Astrid stood at the epicenter of chaos, her heart pounding as she rallied the Veltrixians around her. The vibrant energy flow of Xyler 7 surged erratically, its pulsating waves threatening to tear the very fabric of their makeshift base apart. We need to stabilize the energy flow, she shouted, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of crackling energy and distant tremors. The Veltrixians, their shimmering forms reflecting the chaos, looked to her with a mix of fear and determination. Zorak stepped forward, his unusual luminescence dimming slightly in the tumult. What do you propose, Astrid? He asked, his telepathic voice resonating within her mind like a distant thunder. Astrid took a deep breath, her mind racing. The plan she had in mind was risky, but they had no choice. We need to form a perimeter around the core. If we can channel the energy through our combined strength, we can stabilize it, she urged, gesturing emphatically. The Veltrixians exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering among them. But Zorak's resolve was unwavering. We trust you, Astrid. Let us. With renewed determination, Astrid led the way, her heart swelling with a sense of purpose. They moved as a unit, weaving through the chaotic landscape, their forms dancing through the wild energy currents. Just as they reached the core, a deafening explosion rocked the ground beneath them. Astrid stumbled, the force knocking her to the ground. Dust and debris swirled around her, blinding her momentarily. Zorak! She yelled, struggling to regain her footing. The Veltrixians were disoriented, their connection to each other faltering. As the dust settled, Astrid saw Zorak standing firm, his eyes glowing with an intensity she had never witnessed before. Stay together, he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. Astrid gathered her breath, her eyes wide with an understanding that dawned upon her. Zorak's form began to shimmer more brightly, tendrils of energy spiraling around him. I can feel the planet's core, he said, his voice now a deep resonance that echoed in her mind. I can manipulate it, but it will require all of us. With a nod, Astrid felt a surge of hope. Then let's do it! We can't let this energy consume us. Together, they formed a circle around Zorak, their hands outstretched toward him. As they concentrated, the energy began to weave between them, intertwining like threads of a tapestry. Focus on your connection to the planet, Zorak instructed, his commanding presence anchoring them. Astrid closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of the ground beneath her, and the pulse of the energy flowing through her veins. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Now! Zorak shouted, and they pushed their energy toward him like a tidal wave. In that moment, the ground beneath them trembled violently, but Astrid held her ground, her heart racing. Zorak's form became a beacon of light, glowing fiercely as he absorbed their collective energy. I need more! He cried, his voice strained. Astrid felt her own energy waning, but she refused to hold back. She poured everything she had into Zorak, feeling the bond they had formed solidify in that moment of desperation. With a final surge, Zorak unleashed the energy, the shockwave radiating outward and stabilizing the chaotic flow. The ground ceased its trembling, and a peaceful calm enveloped them as the energy coalesced into a steady stream. We did it! Astrid exhaled, her voice filled with disbelief and elation. But as the dust settled, a sudden realization hit her. The energy they had stabilized had transformed into a swirling portal, shimmering with a familiar blue hue. What is that? One of the Veltrixians gasped, eyes wide in astonishment. It's a portal, Astrid whispered, her heart racing with excitement and fear. It might lead back to Earth. Zorak stepped closer, his expression contemplative. We have forged a bond, Astrid. We wish to learn more about your world. If you are willing, we will accompany you. Astrid's heart swelled. The thought of bringing the Veltrixians to Earth was both thrilling and overwhelming. Are you sure? She asked, her voice trembling with emotion. It could be dangerous. But it could also create understanding. Zorak interjected gently. Together, we can bridge our worlds. Will you accept us? Looking around at her newfound friends, Astrid felt a rush of warmth and excitement. Yes, she said, her voice strong. Let's go home together. As they stepped through the portal, Astrid knew that this was just the beginning. Two worlds, once apart, were now intertwined in a future filled with promise and friendship. They were no longer just survivors. They were pioneers of a new alliance.